Righty. Welcome back. We are here again, as we are every week, which makes me excited, and I hope it makes you excited too. So, we are talking about systems today. I really love systems because too often we get buried in the day-to-day busyness of running our business that we don't actually have the time to spend working on the things that are actually going to build that business and grow it, right? So, we're going to be talking about that buried in versus that working on concept of your business, and we'll be discussing it with who I call the systems master, Ashlee Berghoff, who is here with us, and she's going to help us figure out how do we use systems to help us in this situation. So, welcome back. We are here at the Impact and Action Conversation series, where we talk with leaders and entrepreneurs about the mindset shifts and the tactical approaches to help you put your impact into action. So, I'm me. I'm Maryann. I'm the same person who's there every week. I'm Maryann Lombardi. I'm the CEO of Maryann Lombardi Coaching, and I'm an author, and I help women and non-binary entrepreneurs really ditch the work-life balance lie and to build a business that is in alignment with the life that they choose to live. Now, you may be thinking, maybe you are, maybe you aren't, but I don't know, going, but systems aren't really sexy, right? I want to talk about like branding. I want to talk about marketing. I want to talk about how I can build my business while I'm like sitting on a beach in Costa Rica, because Instagram told me that's what I should be doing as an entrepreneur, right? But I want to tell you that systems are wicked sexy, right? Systems are sexy because what is not sexy is struggling to stay connected with your clients, right? Not being able to pay your team and not being able to have the time to focus to do your best work on your business because you're buried in that work. The other thing that's not sexy is like sleeping 3 hours a night because you're just stressed about not having enough time to do the work of your business. But with the support of the right systems, you can take that pressure off and have the freedom to do what you do best, right? Which is build this kick-ass business. So without further ado, let's bring Ashlee on in here to help us figure this whole shebang thing out so we can get good at systems. Ashlee, how are you?
Hi, Maryann. I'm doing great. I loved everything you just said. I was cheering for you from backstage.
Woohoo! That's awesome. Well, please tell people a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you think systems matter.
Yeah. So who I am, I'm a total operations nerd. I've loved this stuff since I was a little kid. And the work that I do now gives me the chance to lean all the way into that nerdiness. So we build systems for lifestyle-driven entrepreneurs, which I define as everyone who started their business around to build the life they wanted. And we also hire virtual assistants at the operations manager, project manager level to help people run their businesses from the operational perspective. Why systems matter? I define systems as the infrastructure under everything in our world. It's the thing that gives structure to life, and it's the way that we do things, right? So people don't have to be operations nerds like me to use, love, and benefit from systems.
Yeah. That is the best definition I've heard of systems yet.
Thanks.
So, well, because I think when people say like systems is a huge word, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a huge word that I think everyone says, oh, I know what systems are. But then when you talk about like, okay, well, you need a system for your business or you need a system for this piece of your business, they're like, what is that again?
Yeah.
So I would love for you to help unpack a little bit for us, distill a little bit. What are business systems?
Yeah. So every business has kind of its own ecosystem, right? If we think about, your backyard or something, it has the interaction between the trees and the grass and the bugs and everything going on to make the yard what it is. Your business is the same way, right? So every business has systems, whether you're intentional about them or not. You're going to have a way you go about getting clients, a way you go about serving them, a way you go about getting paid, kind of the big three core aspects of a business, right? And so really the only question is how intentional you want to be about them, how comfortable you are integrating those into your values so that your systems are moving your business in the direction you need it to go. But we all use them all the time. I mean, even this, the computer and the internet that we're working on, that all relies on tons of systems to make things happen for us. And so it's just a matter of learning how to see those, kind of the plumbing underneath your business, and how to get things to work the way you want.
Yeah. So when you are working with a new client, what is usually the stumbling block that they have when they come to you and really figuring out how to develop systems or create efficiencies in their work so that they can get to those three core things, faster,
Mhm.
better. What are the stumbling blocks that entrepreneurs have?
Yeah. So I think there are two main ones. One is that they're too busy to get less busy, right? My goal in my work is to take as many obstacles out between them and getting those systems the way they want. Um, and systems will save you time in the long run. But when you're just in survival mode, you don't have time to stop and think about the infrastructure of what's happening, right? You're just trying to keep your head above water. So that's a big one. And then another one is that so many entrepreneurs are creatives, visionaries, big ideas people. When they think about systems, they think about bureaucracy. They think about the way that systems constrain them in their past corporate lives. They think about how they want room for spontaneity and for things to come when they're inspired and not to be like put into this box, right? And so there's a misunderstanding of how systems work that can make them feel like a constraint, rather than the thing that enables creative work. So that's a big one too.
Yeah. Ooh, that's really good. I hadn't thought about that. But that definitely sort of like hit somewhere with me, right? Because well, I have my control issues,
Mhm.
but I also hate that feeling of being confined.
Mhm.
I struggle with this with my calendar often because I try time blocking because of course everybody says it's the
Yep.
the master of all things. But
Mhm.
even when I look at my calendar and I see the blocks of time, I get cranky about the
Yeah.
fact that I have to do that thing in that time I blocked.
Right.
So it's been a real dance for me to figure out how to manage my calendar and also manage my own, oddities or my own needs around that dynamic.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's huge because I mean, we have the privilege as entrepreneurs of being able to design things with much more freedom than we would in corporate jobs. I was joking with someone the other day about, in so many corporate environments, if you went up to your boss and told them that you are just now only taking calls on Tuesdays and Fridays, they would laugh you out of the room, right? So we get this kind of freedom to design that, but with that becomes this tension of then trying to find a system that actually works for you and doesn't make you cranky, right? Because that's our
Yeah,
job.
yeah. So help us understand a little bit what are core systems within those three areas you spoke of.
Yeah. So usually the first one we focus on for entrepreneurs, because it's the first one that starts breaking, is the customer experience, right? So especially in service businesses, most entrepreneurs start out and they find people who could use their skill sets in some way. And it looks very customized at the beginning, right? Oh, you need this? I could do that for you. You need that? I could do that for you. At a certain point, you hit a ceiling, right? You can't take on anyone else. You're trying to grow. You're trying to maybe start specializing, start not doing some of the things that you could do but don't like to do, some of those things. And so the first thing that we always look at is how do we make a beautiful, consistent, streamlined customer experience that is customizable for your clients, but isn't custom for every client. And seeing the difference between those things. Because if you are, charging restaurant prices, but providing private chef services, that stops working eventually, right? So we
Yeah.
want to get the restaurant to act like a restaurant in terms of how you're thinking about your services. So that's a big one. And we usually start there. Yeah.
Yeah. So what stage of business are the clients and the entrepreneurs usually in when they come to you or they find you or they recognize that they need the kind of support you provide? What stage of business are they in?
Yeah, they tend to be at one of two stages. So one would be a little bit like what I described. They're emerging out of the spaghetti against the wall phase and saying, okay, I know what I want to do now. I want to be able to put some structure around my offers and be able to have a program that I can streamline, that I can bring a lot of people through, that I can start seeing some cumulative benefit to, right? Because the other thing with fully custom work is you're doing all of this work and you're sending it out the door into someone else's business and you're starting over again with the next person, right? So they want to start building that. So that can be one. Another spot that people can run into is when they're wanting to move out of one-on-one work altogether or start building a team that can build a vision that's bigger than them, right? So if you're at a spot where you have your clients, you're making decent money, you're feeling good about all of that, but now you want to build something bigger, you want to go beyond that, that can be a spot where the infrastructure becomes really, really pertinent to making that kind of change. Because
Yeah.
it's hard to train other people to do something that you have no consistent system for.
Yeah. Is it hard to explain to, I don't know if explain is the right word, but is it hard to help entrepreneurs understand why they need systems, right? Because I mean, or is it kind of like, well, of course I need systems, or where does this conversation come in? Because I don't mean to
Yeah.
harp on the whole sexy part of it, but I do feel like this comes up in conversations that I have often with
Yep.
entrepreneurs about foundations versus tactics,
Yep.
whereas tactics are much more attractive and
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to talk about tactics, but the tactics aren't nearly as effective if the foundations are like rock solid. I'm just interested in the dynamic of what entrepreneurs find sexy and what they don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's real because that motivation piece, a lot of
Mhm.
what you're working on with people, that makes a huge difference in what, whether something actually is going to happen or not. I feel like people know they need systems in the same way we all know we need vegetables, right? Like, yes, I know, I'm aware. Like I rarely run into anyone who's like, nah, I don't need that because they're feeling the pain, right? And they're having people telling them over and over and over again, you need systems, you need systems. This is going to help you here because you're burned out, because you're not sleeping, because you haven't taken a vacation in 3 years, right? It's time. It's time for systems. So they know that. It's just that sexiness piece comes in. And so a couple of the things that I try to share are, one, like you were saying at the beginning, I think they can be absolutely beautiful, personalized to you works of art, right? And we can see this in nature, right? Like the system that is a honeycomb, stunning, right? That's a system, right? And so if you think about the systems in your business in a similar way, like this is a way to add structure to the work you're trying to do and to
Mm,
protect your time, it can actually be quite cool, and quite unique to you. But another thing I talk to them about is that systems decide what happens, right? Your systems in your business are going to determine the outcome, right? And so when you don't like the outcome, you can tweak the system to get a different one.
hmm.
But I think we put so much weight on our own like willpower, and then we burn out our willpower because it's not actually meant to get us the distance by itself. Um, when we think about, the DMV is a great example. No one walks into the DMV wanting the experience they get, including the staff, right? No staff members like, yeah, I want to be miserable all day and just be grumpy with people. Like that's not what they want to do. But the system is the way the system is, and it creates that outcome over and over again, right?
Mhm.
And so even when we have a different intent, we've got to look at the system. And so it can be really cool and it's really important, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so that's where we try to start.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I love the example of the honeycomb. That's very, very cool.
I've
Hmm.
I've thought about that a lot because it's just, with our world without structure in it, it wouldn't work, right? Not only would it not function at all, but we wouldn't be able to experience it the way that we do. So,
Yeah. I'm curious, for yourself as an entrepreneur, how systems play in your work and your growth, and whether or not you find that it can be challenging for you to manage your own systems while you're also helping people develop their systems.
oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially when it comes to time management. My husband can tell you I struggle mightily with being a few minutes late to everything. Like
Mhm.
time management is not a natural strength of mine. I love to organize things, but just I like to cram things in until it's the last minute. And then, I'm late just a little bit to everything. So it's something I'm constantly working on. Um, but yeah, so one of the things that I've had to learn is when I need to stop building the systems and actually get out there and do the
Mm,
thing. So I really, I really appreciate being around visionary, high energy entrepreneurs who can bring that, like, well, I'm just out there doing stuff and this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. I'm like, that's awesome. Because I can be tempted to be back here organizing everything until it's beautiful, but no one knows it exists, right?
mm,
I'm not connecting with people. I'm not bringing them to my world. I'm not bringing that energy to it. So we all have our natural strengths and weaknesses. And I have that kind of flip side of the coin of being too focused on systems. Um, and so I'm in a stage of my business right now where my coach is forcing me to set the systems piece aside for a minute and do a whole lot of just having conversations, reaching out to people, reaching out to people. And I use a system for that, but that's the only one I'm allowed to operate. He's like, you can build everything else in your sleep when all of this stuff comes to fruition, but you wait. So he's making me do that. So yeah, I mean, they're always changing. They're always iterating. You're always finding new ways to kind of solve new problems, right? They're very much a living part of a business. So I'll never arrive.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here, I would love if you could provide folks like one thing that they could start doing on their own to really improve their systems or better understand, how to implement a system. What's like the one thing that they could start doing that would have an impact in their business, system related?
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing I've found that's kind of one quick, easy to implement tool that has had the biggest impact as a first new system is separating your to-do list from your ideas list. I think we've talked about this before, because for most people, your most difficult, most important system is around how you're managing and approaching your time. And the greatest source of angst comes from this place where, for so many of us, we have one huge, absolutely impossible to-do list we are trying to measure our performance against. And so we never feel like we win. We never feel like we're getting ahead. We never feel like we're doing enough. And that's where we get in this hamster wheel thing of like, maybe if I just push a little bit harder, maybe if I push a little bit more, maybe if I work a little bit longer, I can actually get somewhere, right? So the first thing I recommend for absolutely everyone is to take that big list, take the vast majority of it and put it on an ideas list away from your to-dos list, and only have a few projects on your to-do list at any given time. And then when you finish one project, now you have an open slot. You can bring a new project over from your ideas list. But entrepreneurs have a million ideas a day and are getting lots of input too. They have coaches and webinars and things telling them like, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And this should happen. And this should happen. And I made $1 million doing X. And all of that lands on your to-do list and you never win. It's impossible to win at that game. So here's permission to not try to win at that game. Because many of us have tried before you and there is no winning at that game. But there is room to honor those ideas, to create a place for them to live, but not make that your to-do list, and really carefully protect a few small projects that you're working on at any given time. That can
Wow,
make a
that's
huge
really
difference.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Selfishly speaking, I would love to ask you, is there something that I could do that would help me navigate this crankiness I have around my calendar? Something either to think about or explore um, around,
Yeah.
does my calendar control me or do I control my like that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel the exact same way. So because I've heard the exact same advice and I tried it and I hated it. And so this is what I've done that helps me with the crankiness. Is my calendar has the things that I'm committed to doing like this, right? I promise to be at a certain place at 1 p.m. I'm going to be there at 1 p.m., right? Everything else, I plan according to the amount of capacity I have and allocate time to things, but not on my calendar. So when I sat down this morning, I mean, today was a busy call day, so maybe today's a bad example. Yesterday, when I actually had time outside of calls, I had 3 things that I was working on outside of the meetings I had scheduled. When those happened was up to me. So it provided me just a little bit more space to say, okay, of these 3, I'm in the mood to do this one right now. Or
Mm,
actually, I have no creative energy right now. I'm going to do these 3 in the afternoon. So they become more like puzzle pieces I can move around, because at least for me, when I look at my calendar, those all feel like commitments to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I feel like, oh, I've promised myself that I'm going to work on this at 9 a.m. and it's 9 a.m. and the last thing I want to do is this thing. Right. Then I feel like I'm breaking a commitment to myself, or I'm breaking something. Right. Um, but so if I know I have 4 hours available outside of calls and I schedule, 3 1-hour projects and 2 half-hour projects, I can then move those things around throughout the day based on my energy, based on what I feel like I want to do. It's still, only 4. I still don't have endless options of what I'm going to be working on that day. But it gives me just a little bit more structure to move things around and to feel like I have some
Yeah.
space. So you could try that and see if it helps.
Yeah, no, I like that, and
Well,
I like the fact that and it seems sort of obvious, but just hearing you say it really helped where when you said that they feel like commitments, and then I feel like I'm breaking a commitment. And I
mhm.
think that is what happens when I look at that thing and they feel like commitments. And my response isn't I feel like I'm gonna break a commitment. I go, what the hell? I don't want to make that commitment. I don't have to do that commitment if I don't want to, because I have this sort of passive aggressive reaction to control. Like I feel like that controls my
Mm,
time. So, but
right.
that's so helpful. I'm gonna go play around with that for next week
Yeah.
and see what
I would
happens.
I would love to hear what your experience is with it, because it's been helpful for me. Because if I don't tie it to my time in some way, I get way too overambitious.
Yeah,
Um, but it gives me a little bit more room. And sometimes I'll even say, I'm going to move things around between today and tomorrow because I don't feel like doing that today.
yeah,
And it just gives me that space a little bit, but
I
it still
love
keeps
it.
me on task.
Right. Well, Ashley, thank
Mhm.
you so much for spending the time with us today. How can people connect with you? Find out more about you, work with you. What's the best way?
Yeah, LinkedIn's my playground. So I would love to connect right here. I'm the only Ashlee Berghoff spelled this way. So you can find me here on LinkedIn. Would love to start a conversation, and you can learn everything about me right here.
Rock and roll. I love it. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you, Maryann. I appreciate you.
All right. Bye bye.